Welcome to the Rings of Power recap. At a young age, Galadriel loved her brother Finral, until the great foe Morgoth destroyed the light of their hometown and their sacred tree. The elven race left Valinor. They dispatched fleets of elves to fight in Middle-earth. The battle between orcs and elves lasted centuries. Barely anyone survived, until Morgoth was defeated. The remaining orcs spread across Middle-earth, and multiplying under his devoted servant Sauron. Her brother promised to defeat Sauron, but Sauron bested him, and his corpse was marked. Galadriel then vowed to take after her brother and accomplish his promise. Years passed and they haven't seen Sauron or an orc ever since the Great War. Under Commander Galadriel, she is one of the last commanders that believe the orcs are still out there. They travel north to check the last encampments. They discover the castle where the orcs gathered after the war. They find an orc, consumed by dark magic. Through water they uncover the mark, Galadriel believing it to be a mark to guide the orcs. Far exceeding more of their mission, she wants them to head north more to follow the signal. After facing a snow troll, her entire legion revolts, and she is forced to return. Galadriel confronts Elrond, an emissary of the kingdom and a close friend. She wants to propose that they take elven warriors and head north to eradicate the rest of the orcs, but Elrond convinces her to attend the ceremony first. At the ceremony, the High King Gil-galad thanks Galadriel and her troops for their service and announces that they will be returning to Valinor. Betrayed by Elrond, they are forced to return to their homeland. As they pass through the light to return to Valinor, Galadriel dives into the ocean, staying behind to continue her sole mission of eradicating the orcs. Alone and swimming for miles, she is saved by a weary traveller, Halbrand. He was driven out of the Southland by the orcs. Crushing waves consume them all day and night, until they are rescued aboard a Númenórean ship, and they meet Elendil, captain of the Sea Guard. Númenor fought with the elves in the Great War, and were awarded elven goods, but as time passed, they slowly ceased contact. They are brought in front of the Queen Regent Miriel, and Pharazôn his disciple, who is a secret resistance leader against the elves. For now they are guests of the Queen, until Queen Miriel can decide their fate. During this time, Galadriel learns that the marking is actually a map of the Southlands, and that Halbrand's emblem is from the king's lineage in the Southlands. The Sea Guard train to prepare at sea. The most elite crewmen prepare for this role. Among them are Isildur, Elendil's son, and his friends Valandil and Ontimo. Isildur doesn't have aspirations of joining the Sea Guard, much superseded by his father, so he deliberately lets go of the ropes, foregoing his position, in turn accidentally getting his friends Valandil and Ontimo kicked off too. Their friendship breaks because of it. In the meantime, Halbrand gets into a street fight and is imprisoned. Galadriel tries to advocate for change and helping the elves in the war, and is imprisoned for sedition. Through Halbrand's inspiration, Galadriel escapes the guards and intercepts Miriel's father, who used to be loyal to the elves, but she is met with Miriel. Galadriel manages to convince Miriel to go to war with the elven race and protect her people. There she shows her one of the 7 Palantiries. This one is able to portray the future, and they fear that Númenor will flood. Queen Miriel announces the renewal to the elven race, and the trio enlist for war. Valandil grazes Galadriel, and he is promoted to lieutenant for it. Now the troops head off for war, leaving Pharazôn in charge of Númenor. Far away, watchguard elf Arondir does his routine checks in Tirharan, a village, at the tavern that Wodreg owns. He also checks on Bronwyn, but they know nothing can ever happen between them. They get reports that the war is over, and Watch Captain Revion commands them to return to Valinor. Astounded, Arondir decides to inform Bronwyn of his departure. Midway through their conversation, they tend to a cattle farmer, with a strange corrupted substance coming out of the cow's udders. Arondir decides to explore the region in which it wandered from. They realize that the entire village has been ravaged and desolate. Finding giant tunnels in the floor, Bronwyn runs back to inform the troops of possible orcs in the area. Whilst Arondir enters the tunnels by himself, he is caught by an orc in town after killing an orc. She convinces them of their presence. With this information, the town evacuates to a now vacant watchtower. Meanwhile, Arondir is placed into a dugout, where he runs into Medor and Revion. Elves alike and survivors are chained up, and made to dig across the land. They realize that the orcs fear the light. They construct a plan to peer over the edge and see where they are. On a different day, when day breaks, they fight the orcs. Medor is killed by an orc. Retreating, they send the warg out, massive wolf-like creatures that instantly consume the survivors. Chaining up the warg, Revion escapes, short-lived as he is shot and killed. The last and only survivor is Arondir, and he meets Adar, the one the orcs call father, another elf. He gives Arondir a message and frees him. Whilst this was happening, more and more villagers heard of the imminent troubles and evacuated to the tower. Short on rations, Bronwyn's son, Thea ventures outside of the castle to scavenge and collect food. He is intercepted by orcs, and on his way back, Arondir saves him. They make it back to the castle, where Thea reveals that he has a broken blade that the orcs are looking for. Arondir delivers the message. They can choose to show allegiance and beg for mercy to Adar, or fight against the orcs at the tower. Half of the humans, led by Wardrag, decide to join the orcs, whilst the other half follow Bronwyn and Arondir. When the orcs storm the tower, Arondir shoots down the tower and flees back to the village. As they prepare for war the next day, Arondir hides Sauron's sword, and they confess their love for each other. They face off against the orcs, brutally massacring all of them, until they realize they were just killing the villagers. The orcs now break in and, wounded from battle, threaten to kill Bronwyn. Thea reveals the blade's location, but the earth begins to tremble, because Numenor had arrived to save the Southlanders, and Arondir instantly recognizes Galadriel as commander of the northern armies. In the aftermath, Halbrand catches Adar, but he doesn't recognize Halbrand. Galadriel interrogates Adar, realizing he's a Morindor, or the first orcs, Adar revealing that they will have power not of the flesh, but over it, and that they will create a place for the orcs over the earth, and that the one they call Sauron he had killed. Theo admits that when he knew Sauron's blade, he felt invincible and powerful. Arondir allows him to forego this power, and they realize that it is missing. Miles away, Wardrag combines Sauron's blade into the tower. The surge of power floods the bridges through the land and using the tunnels to flow to a massive volcano that causes it to erupt, shooting molten lava across the land, turning the bright sky into a mist-filled ash wasteland. With most of the army deceased, they try to save the remaining souls. Ontamo is already gone, and in trying to save the soldiers, Isildur is crushed by a falling roof. The army, now with a blind Queen Regent, Valandil and Elendil, return to camp. Galadriel runs into Theo and helps escort him back to camp, where he finds Bronwyn. Elendil blames Galadriel for Isildur's death, unable to come to terms with Miriel when she promises that Numenor will return to the battle against the orcs. Halbrand is gravely injured, and to save him, Galadriel takes him to be healed using elven medicine. The Queen and the Sea Guard head back to Numenor, where they find the island to be burning and trashed. When Galadriel was on her journey, Elrond was misled by the king and made to reconnect with Khazad-dûm to help build a massive structure with Celebrimbor, more specifically, Prince Durin IV. He meets up with his wife, Disa, and kids, Gerda and Gamli. There he realizes that they are being suspicious and decide to investigate the dwarves, realizing that they are secretly digging in the old mines, intercepting Durin at the old mine. As an old friend, Durin admits that he was digging for mithril, a new ore lighter than silk and harder than iron. It has a light that will never dim, and gives him a piece of mithril. A cave-in begins, and Elrond manages to save Durin, inviting Durin over to meet with the King Gil-galad. The king makes Elrond recite the ancient tale, the Song of the Root of Hithaglil, a battle over a sacred tree that people believe kept the last of the Silmarils. One side was an elven warrior, heart as pure as Manwë. The other side containing the Balrog of Morgoth, who channeled his hatred to destroy the tree. Amidst the battle, lightning struck the tree, forging a power as pure and as strong as light. He believes the dwarves have discovered this ore, showing him the corrupted tree. If the tree is fully corrupted, the elven race will cease to exist, and he knows the ore can save the tree. Pleading for Durin to help, he admits that he will try to sway his father, King Durin III, but firm on his stance, King Durin is against helping the elven race, deciding to allow them to fade. Unable to let his friend and the elven race die, Durin begins to secretly dig in the old mine, and they uncover a massive pocket of ore sprouted from the roots of the tree. At that site, King Durin arrests them for restricted mining, outcasting Elrond, and Prince Durin is abdicated. Galadriel is remiss for not following the king's orders. Halbrand is treated quickly, and gives Celebrimbor the idea to save the tree by combining lesser materials with the small amounts of mithril they have. When Celebrimbor pitches this idea, he cites the powers of not of flesh, but over flesh. Knowing this came from Halbrand, she starts to get suspicious, and asks for a thorough search of Halbrand's history. During the smithing of the materials and other ores, Galadriel is given a scroll, entailing the truth about Halbrand. Confronting Halbrand, he admits his name to be Sauron. With Sauron disappearing, they decide to make the ores into 3 for balance, representing air, water and fire, and Celebrimbor creates 3 rings of power, and Sauron returns to the new Mordor. In a faraway land, the half-wits live alone, hiding from peril. On one night, Nori Brandyfoot ventures out, following a meteor and finding an elderly man. She quickly hides the stranger from peril and gets back to camp. The only one that knows about the stranger is Poppy, her best friend. She spends time helping the stranger and keeping him away from camp, living 2 separate lives. Realizing that he has magical powers, he shapes a star. Not knowing anything about stars or astronomy, they steal a page from Sadok's book about stars and gives it to the stranger. The camp learns of the stranger once he stumbles in, and he helps the Brandyfoot cart as they migrate. Camping at a burnt down zone, they convince the stranger to try and help them revive the tree. During this transformation, a branch breaks and it crushes Nori and her little sister Dilly. Failing to sprout fruit, the camp decide that the stranger is too dangerous and send him off. That night, the Mystics catch up to his trail. They try to fight off the Mystics, but they harness the fire from their torches and blow the fire like a flamethrower, disappearing into the mist. They realize that they must warn the stranger. Venturing to his location, the Mystics call the stranger their master and tell him about the home attack and return with them to Ron. As the feet appear, they enter a battle with the Mystics. Sadok is stabbed and they begin to lose the fight fast. When the stranger awakens and eviscerates the Mystics, they slowly dissipate into white butterflies. Sadok realizes that he is about to die, and accepting his fate, he watches the sun rise one last time. The troop bring the stranger back to camp, where now the Brandyfoots accept their fate too, allowing Nori to adventure with the stranger, and she leaves the camp to join the stranger on his journey to Ron. This is where the series ends. Make sure to subscribe, and for more, watch this.